trying to instill in practice that anybody's voice could be powerful in that moment. And even putting it in the assignments. I mean, in my assignments, sometimes it will be like, step 1, practice your cue words. Step 2, get a partner. Step 3, give your partner a pep talk. Because if they haven't done that and practiced it, they're not going to do it on meet day.
Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversation. I'm your host, Peterson Pierre. I'm very excited that you tuned in to another episode of Heated Conversations. We have Bowling Green head coach Kerrie Turner on the podcast today to talk about her program, the things that she loves about her program, the things that they're excited about in this 2024 season. She's entering her 21st season at Bowling Green. So she has a lot of experience and kind of talk about that and also her journey leading her to be able to become a college head coach and what it took and what things that she learned and mentors. So as you guys are tuning in, remember to hit that subscribe button, to share, like, and leave a comment. Let's tune in. Kerrie, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today.
Absolutely. I'm really honored that you decided to be able to be a part of it and kind of be a part of my journey in helping kind of give back. Gymnastics has given me so much, and my college, at least, experience started with one of your really good friends, Natalie Walsh. And so knowing somewhat of the nuances of college gymnastics, there's also some other elements of college gymnastics that have come up in the horizon, not necessarily in the horizon, but has come up more recently. And we'll talk about those things in transfer portal stuff as well as NIL. But I wanted to start off by asking a couple questions so then the viewers and listeners can kind of get to know you in a different way. So my first question, if you could have anyone cook you a meal, who would you have cook you that meal, and what would you want them to make you?
Ooh, yeah. So probably my favorite chef, and I love the Food Network. I love to cook. I'm better known for baking. I actually um, bake some pretty spectacular cakes as a hobby. I've done a lot of wedding cakes and graduation cakes and things like that. But meal-wise, I love Ina Garten. She is a really famous chef, and anytime I need a great recipe, she's my go-to. So I can't imagine having her actually cook a meal for me, but I would take anything she would make, to be honest. I feel like I'm a foodie, so I'd be so excited just to have anything from her. Yeah.
And what kind of styles of cooking does she do?
You know what? She covers a lot of different areas, but what I like is on her show, she uses a lot of like the local food vendors. So it's like really fresh ingredients, and whether she's just the other day I was watching her make like sauteed spinach, and I was like, oh my gosh, she makes it sound so good, something simple as that. And I use her recipe for a roast chicken for Thanksgiving. So I'd love to have her make it for me so that I could try it. Hopefully I do it justice at Thanksgiving time, but just she keeps it simple and fresh and just so good.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. And how you just mentioned Thanksgiving passed probably about a month ago, and having those, meals and times together to be able to spend with our family, which actually kind of leads into my second question. If you could see anyone live in concert, dead or alive, who would you like to go see, and who would you take with you?
So this is really an appropriate question because I just pretty much got to live one of my dreams. So my husband, Adrian, took me to Las Vegas earlier this month to see U2 at the Sphere, which if you haven't seen that venue, it's new. I'm a huge U2 fan, so I've seen them. I think that was my 5th time seeing them live. Um, so I would definitely go see them every single time if I could. And I would bring my husband. I'd also love to bring my daughter, who's actually a freshman here at BGSU, because we're really close and they're my support system. But yeah, I'd also love to see Queen with Freddie Mercury. I just absolutely think he's amazing, and sad that we lost him, quite young. But, that's one concert I'd love to go to, and probably take my dad to that because he's a huge music lover too. So yeah.
And so was rock and roll and those bands something that you grew up really listening to? And you had mentioned your dad kind of liking those that band. Is that
Yeah.
something you really just kind of grew up and just never went away?
Absolutely. So I grew up listening to classic rock in the car, in the house. That's what we heard. We actually heard lots of different music. I have a huge passion for going to the symphony and classical music as well. There's really no genre of music that I can think of that I haven't found something that I really like. So obviously, when we're in the gym, we're not listening to classic rock. We've got everything from country to rap to hip hop to pop. You've got it all in there, which I love too. So not really one area that I would limit myself to, but classic rock has a place, in my heart, because I, grew up hearing that in our house, and it just brings memories back. It's great.
And having you go to these concert, one with your husband and two with your father, can you talk about having those male figures really be a big support in your life, and even just family, what that means to you and how that contributes to the way you coach?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad is a gym dad. He still calls me before and after every meet. Sometimes I have to remind him I'm, a grown woman and the head coach, but he gives me his full commentary. He watches all the meets, and he loves our team, even though he lives far away. He's watching all the live streams, and I love that his passion for gymnastics is just as much as mine. And he really had no interaction with the sport until I became a gymnast. But just having that level of support and that passion and interest in it is so important. And then my husband, who's actually a professor at BGSU, I kind of turned him into a gymnastics fan. He's British and a huge soccer Premier League fan, but he gets into it too. He has the commentary as well, and gives me a very honest assessment, even if it's not what I want to hear. Sometimes it's good for me to hear it from him. And then my mom, she's a great support. My daughter, she loves to come to the meets too, and I'm just mom to her, so that's great too. And I definitely think that, especially when becoming a parent, that changed me as a coach big time. I think a lot about our own gymnasts, and how, if that were my daughter, how would I want her treated? How would I want her experience to be? And I want that for our student athletes too. And even though I'm not their mom, and sometimes I have to remind them of
Yeah.
that, not your mom, I'm your coach. It all starts with love and care. The student athletes have to feel loved and cared for if they're going to do their best. And it's really what they want out of their experience. And I think that's what myself and our staff really tries to provide for them.
And that's incredible. And, with these first two questions, and the reason why I kind of asked them is to kind of show what things are important to certain coaches and individuals who are on the podcast, because I think it's important that we talk about things that are really common to everyone. I would assume pretty much everybody eats and everybody has someone that they're close to, and it
Yeah.
kind of drives what they do in life, right? Where's a common place I would like to go and hang out or go and eat? If I have an option on a Saturday or on a weekday, where am I going to go? Or what kind of food do I want? Or am I going to go home and cook meals? And who am I going to be around? And tells just a little bit of a story about that individual. And I think those are things that connect very well to people.
Mhm.
And we all go through life and have, some type of music that's happening that we're either writing our song, as I know some people have said in the past on some episodes. And so it's cool. And with our sport in gymnastics, especially with college gymnastics, the music is such a huge part, because it's not only the music in the floor routines, there's music going on as throughout the competition, but also in a lot of different competitions, especially dual, there's a beam song that's also going that makes a connection. And so music is a huge part of telling a story, of being able to energize if need be, also to be able to speak to certain emotions if I'm down, and to really have something to relate to. And so that's really the purpose of those. And kind of talk about, again, some of your support system. Now,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, I think that's so important. And just talking about music in the gym, I just wanted to highlight, I feel like in our sport where the focus and the intensity is so high for these short bursts of activity. And then you can see how, if for some reason the music gets shut off or someone finishes a floor routine and doesn't even just put the background music back on, everyone's like, where's the music, and that calming effect that it has, or it's just something to kind of get into to let your brain relax in between turns. And I completely agree. It is a huge connector amongst all of us.
right. And sometimes hearing your own thoughts, sometimes you need something to distract yourself so you don't seem too loud, because when the music is going on, it feels like if I'm having a one-on-one conversation, I can have that conversation.
Right.
Imagine being at a restaurant that's super quiet and there's a bunch of conversations that's happening. You'll find yourself probably drifting your ear to somebody else's conversation that might perk you if they say something. Where if you and I are out to lunch and we're talking about the podcast and there's music playing, it's easy for us to connect and talk about. And even depending on what's playing, we may let the conversation go certain ways. It might be a little more calming. It might be not necessarily intense, but more energized. We might notice something about this that reminds us about something either in the gym or our childhood or something. Why is it significant? So music is very, very essential to what we do as people, and especially in our sport.
Agreed.
Now, you had mentioned how your parents were super supportive in your gymnastics. Can you kind of take us on a journey on when did gymnastics start in Kerrie's life? And when did gymnastics become something that you wanted to become a career in that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember starting in elementary school, not as young as a lot of our gymnasts who say, they started at 2 or 3 and mommy and me. And I just, did the local YMCA and then the rec program, and then moved into a club program. I grew up in Connecticut and was lucky to live near a really great, fantastic club gym. And, it just, I really wasn't super talented in gymnastics, but it was my true love. It was just the thing I love to do. The gym is like kind of almost a spiritual place. It's a place where I just feel myself, and um, I loved the work. I had a lot of mental blocks as an athlete, and it was really hard. It didn't come easily, but I loved going in there and working towards things, and I loved the challenge of it. So, like I said, I wasn't the best gymnast in the gym, but it was my passion from early on. And then, um, was fortunate to compete. First, I competed at Ithaca College, and then I transferred to Ursinus College and competed at Division III, which is a really special experience. Really great experience for student athletes that I highly recommend if that's the right fit for somebody. And you know what? I was studying athletic training, and when I got out of, graduated from college, I was not thinking I was going to go into coaching. I was kind of like, okay, I've done my gymnastics and now I'm going to go into athletic training and still be around athletes. And about 3 months out, I was like, ooh, I'm not in the gym. I don't know who I am without it.
Right.
I was really lucky to be able to volunteer coach at Ursinus, while I was also working in admissions at another university. So I kind of got that taste of coaching college, and I absolutely loved it. I loved working with the student athletes, and it's such a pivotal time in their lives. It's really, we once had a strength coach here that says, you arrive, you arrive as a girl and you graduate as a woman. And I think that's so true. That transition in life during that time is so important. It's a place to find your confidence. It's a place to find who you are. And as coaches, the fact that we get to be a part of that journey, even if we play a little bit of a role and try to help influence to become a really empowered woman and go out into the world and just go chase those dreams down, you know, that I was able to catch on pretty quickly too. And I really love that. And then I was really fortunate to get hired to be the head coach at UW Oshkosh, a young 23-year-old head coach.
Yeah.
You know, still look back at that and think, wow, I just jumped right in with 2 feet and had a great experience. I was lucky to coach with Natalie Walsh there. You know, we became really good friends there and spent 3 years at Oshkosh and loved it. Really loved the Division III experience again. And then was fortunate to get the assistant coaching job at BGSU, and then was, you know, the assistant for 4 years and then moved into the head coaching role here. And obviously, as I've been saying, you know, I met my husband and he's a professor here and my daughter's a freshman here. So it's sort of like we're all at BGSU right now together.
Yeah. Right.
And it's really fun. This is a really special place. But that's really my journey into college coaching, and takes a lot of work. It's not an easy work-life balance, but if you love it, it doesn't feel hard. You know, it feels like
Yeah.
the best job ever. So
Right. And having the support of, husband who will tell you how it is at a
yeah,
competition, right? And having a daughter who can separate that you're not just a gymnastics coach, but you're her mom, and having them all be doing life at the same place together, even though you guys are in different phases. Two are more probably academic, but in their roles as academics are different. But you guys can share that commonality where, you know what, we're all, BGSU, and to be able to have that support, I think is super important. And one other thing too, you mentioned you had a lot of mental blocks as an athlete. Now, did that drive any of your reasons why you wanted to coach? And also, when you said 3 months out of doing your own gymnastics at college, that you missed it. And do you feel like part of it was you wanted to be able to give back to those athletes who might have had the same experiences that you had as an athlete?
absolutely. I think the mental blocks, there's no doubt that, you know, I think when I was doing gymnastics quite a long time ago, you know, there was definitely more of a tough love mentality, sort of a, you know, stand there until you go. And I think there are some things that were really acceptable then that didn't help me. And I was really fortunate to have one coach who was really patient with me and would come in, you know, he'd say, hey, why don't you come in extra hour and just let's try and work through this. And it was that partnership built that helped me work through mental blocks. And that's what I always say when people ask me about my coaching philosophy. I always say it's got to be a partnership between the coach and the athlete. There can't sort of be this huge power divide. There can't be this sort of, you know, dictatorship over the student athletes. It needs to be a partnership, because the partnerships I had with coaches were the most effective style of coaching. And I definitely think, as I missed gymnastics and thought about giving back, not only was it about giving back, but it was trying to give back with an elevated experience, something even better for that next, you know, group coming through, and trying to be a little more patient on the mental blocks and things like that, or finding a unique way to approach something and trying to be super creative in my coaching. So that took some things worked great, some things were total failures, you know. And as you look back in your coaching career, especially when you've done it for a long time, you start to realize that was a real miss and that didn't work. But we learned so much from it and we got better from it, you know, either as a staff or in the coach athlete partnerships. So that I definitely think that's still the reason, right? Is to make the experience as good as possible, and, you know, make it and place where that student athletes want to come every day. I want them to walk in the door and be like, yes, it's time for practice. Let's go, and
Yeah.
have it be a place that's still fun and hard work, but still fun.
Right. And you also had experience both in the Eastern Conference of Division Three as well as the Western Conference in
Yeah.
Division Three. Can you kind of talk about overall Division Three gymnastics, since you have experience both being an athlete and also being a coach in both conferences?
Yeah. I mean, I was when I was at Ursinus, we made it to our NCGA national championship for the first time as a team. And it was so exciting. What I can't believe is just the level that even from the time I was kind of going through my different years of gymnastics at Division III, I was like, wow, we're just getting in better and better in recruits. And then as a coach, being able to recruit some athletes actually at UW Oshkosh, their current coach, Lauren Karnitz, I recruited her to UW Oshkosh, and she's now the coach. And it's just amazing. The standard for Division III gymnastics is awesome. And they have some rules that make it a little more challenging, and they just work so hard. And what I loved about it is, they're there because they want to be there. There's no scholarships. You have to really love it. Not that their scholarship athletes don't love it, but there's some different motivations there. And we continue to watch Division III rise, and just they're doing amazing things, and they're just as competitive. I see them at meets now, and last year we actually got to see Ursinus at George Washington. We were at a quad meet, and I got to go over and like take a picture with the team, and I was just so impressed with them. They're amazing. They're doing amazing things. So yeah, really both the East and West, just such a competitive group, and great balance as student and athletes. I'm just so happy to see them thriving. It's great.
And I think it's great that you're kind of talking about that, the stigma that Division III only may have a certain level, where right now there was at UW Stout, there's an athlete a couple seasons ago who competed a 1.5,
Yeah,
right?
a
And
good one. A
right.
really good one.
And the gymnastics community was an uproar over the score that this athlete got, where, the thought process, if she did that same vault, but was at a different level of university, she might have gotten the appropriate score for that vault. And having different divisions like Division 1 coaches and Division 1 or Division 2 coaches kind of acknowledge that, and acknowledge that there's athletes who are doing amazing stuff, and to encourage future athletes who may think, it's D1 and or else, where sometimes you could have a great experience. And for the layman person, if you go somewhere and you're an All-American, they're not going to probably follow up and ask you, hey, were you Division 3, Division 2, or Division 1 athlete? They won't care about that. They'll just know that you are the best at doing what you did, right? Or if you said, hey, I was a college athlete, most of the time they're not going to ask you, were you Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, unless you disclose where you went. And if they know, they may know. But for the most part, you were able to live out the sport that you love, and hopefully did it at a high level, and did it, to where, like, you had experience making it to nationals. And if a team wins nationals, again, most layman people won't care if it was Division 3, Division 2, Division 1. And even people in the sport really don't care, in regards to credibility of what you did, right? And yes, they value what you did, but it's not as if they're doing it to like, oh, but you only did it at, it's not that comparison game. It's, hey, you went out there, gave it your all, and your all was able to earn you this. And that just talks about people's character, which I think this is what the whole process of sport and even just life is about, is we use different tools to be able to put forth our best character and our best effort.
Absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, every NCAA gymnast, regardless of your division or conference, they are all working so incredibly hard and trying to get to that best routine and that highest level. And you're right, it doesn't matter what division you're in, or like I said, what conference you're in, everybody's working hard. They're trying to be great team members, and, great teams with great cultures, they rise to the top. And the lessons learned from that are so important. Just the team dynamics that you get to work on with college gymnastics, those are tools for life, and they're so important. And, that's such a great point that, winning a national championship, that's the amount of effort it takes to get a full team there to get that to that point. It's a huge effort, and it doesn't matter, what level or division, and every experience is amazing. That honestly, my experience as a Division III student athlete, it's one of the best memories of my life so far, and if I run into my former teammates, or we're talking on, social media or something, it's like no time has passed. Those relationships are so special. And, I think the most important thing is that student athletes just find the right fit for them. And every place is different, and finding the right place and the right home, so that you have a really healthy, great culture and a great experience to be your best, and thrive, right? Not just survive it, thrive through it. That's so, so crucial.
Yeah. And kind of talking about finding the right place and right home, where is Bowling Green State University located? In what part of the region of the United state it's located in? And then what town are you guys located in?
Yep. So we're actually in Bowling Green, Ohio. It's fitting with the name of our university. We're in Northwest Ohio. So we are about half hour from the Michigan border. So way up kind of in that northern corner. And yeah, it's a great town, college town. Just really special place. They've really done a great job. Like, a lot of the restaurants and shops are, unique to Bowling Green. And when the alums come back, they all have their favorite places. And it's just a really great, great place to be a student athlete, or even just a student. It's just a fantastic town, and very supportive community. So it's really special.
And is there any major cities that are close if there's student athletes who are interested in getting some city life or trying to get to a mall or anything like that? Are there areas that are close? And then also, what are some other activities that people tend to do that attend Bowling Green?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our closest city is Toledo. It's about 20 minutes away. But we also have, there's plenty of shopping and fun things to do in Bowling Green. And then just north of us, about 15 minutes, there's, just about every shop you could think of. And our team loves to do that. They love to just go to Target or go to the outdoor mall and, enjoy that. Movie theaters, all of that. That's a popular thing. I think on campus, though, they just have tons of activities for the students as well, whether it's, wintertime, they pull out the fire pits and you can make s'mores or do something like that. They're constantly having a lot available right here on campus. I know our team, they're together just about all the time. So whether they're just having a movie night at someone's house, or they're going out to dinner to celebrate someone's birthday, yeah, there's plenty to do here. And I think one of the biggest draws is just our sports teams here, getting to go to a basketball game in the Stroh Center, or hockey. Ice hockey is super popular with our team. They love to go to watch hockey. Yeah, I mean, the teams are all very supportive of one another. And I think that's one of our favorite activities to go to, just as a team, is to just support each other. And we get the support back from the other teams, which is great on meet day. So that's a special thing too.
And is there a lot of student athletes? Like, what's the number of student athletes? Also, what is the number of undergrad or even just students, even graduate students, if there's graduate programs at BGSE?
Yep, and we are a comprehensive university, so we have undergrad, graduate, and PhD programs here. I think we're around 18,000 as a campus right now, and then I think we're over 450 student athletes at this point. So, no doubt the pandemic, I think, swelled the roster sizes a little bit. So we'll see how that looks in the next couple of years. But we have 18 sports, 18 different sports. And it's a really robust campus. It's a very residential campus. So when classes sort of let out to rotate, it's just, there's tons of students walking through campus, and it's really a very collegial environment. It's really fun.
And is the community pretty supportive of the university? And is the university pretty supportive of the community in the way that they interact with each other?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very close tie between the local community and the university. And, the motto here is a public university for the public good. So there's a lot of that kind of partnerships built between the community and the academic programs, the athletic programs. That we do a lot of volunteering with community partners. So that's a really great experience for our student athletes. And then you really see people show up at our different athletic events because of those partnerships. But it's really great because it's a really, safe environment. Students can be out and about, walking around downtown. You can walk to downtown from campus and back. But when you're on campus, you really feel like you're on a campus. It's beautiful. It's green and trees and just really welcoming area. But there's no doubt that we thrive with those community partnerships, and just the people in the community that are so special. Our team actually just, we have a couple in town who they've retired. Well, he's one of the people, he's retired from BGSU in biology, and he and his wife hosted our team for soup fests last night, and they got to have their choice of soup and just, good camaraderie with two people that come to every single meet, and they come to every MAC championship every year, and they're just huge supporters of our program. So that's just one great example of that community connection.
And what are some of the academic degrees that you have that your student athletes are
Mhm.
pursuing, but also ones that tend to draw student athletes to Bowling Green?
Yeah, we have a huge amount of majors. Like I think it's almost 200 different majors at BGSU. Our team, it's shifted a little. We've always had a lot of exercise science, physical therapy majors. We've had a lot go into that route, and no doubt they've had physical therapists impact their lives, and they see that as a career field. But we've seen some more diverse majors within our team recently. So the business school is outstanding here. It's well recognized within the Midwest as a great business school. So we have a few in the business college. Education, that's how Bowling Green started, as a school of education, and that continues to be a really great place and great major for students and student athletes. And then we've got some really creative new majors, like aviation is really taking off at Bowling Green because we have an airport right across the street from the university. That program is just growing exponentially. And then our School of Nursing, our School of Physical Therapy, those have really drawn a lot of numbers. But we've had all different majors. We've had interior design. We have one that just graduated last year with architecture, and she's now in grad school. So just lots of options, which I think is really important, because you might think you know what you want to do when you go to college, or you might have no idea, but having a school that has many choices makes it a little bit easier for our student athletes to pick something they find they're passionate about.
And is academics, not that it isn't a high standard, but is that something that you really emphasize with your student athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk with them often about, the gymnastics is so important, and it's a huge priority for us, but it is 4 years, maybe 5 at college. And then you've got to have your plan ready. And when I talk about wanting our women to graduate really empowered, ready to be leaders in their field, that means they have to pick a major they love and they're passionate about. They also need to get involved in that major. So it may mean they have to join a club or do some extra community work that's going to go on their resume. That's number one for us, is making sure the academic fit is good, that they are dedicated to their academic work, and putting the time in with study tables and just doing well and being successful there. That's got to be number one. You don't get to do college gymnastics if you're not doing the academic side of things. So we push that really hard with them, and it's great to see what they end up doing after graduation, and some real success stories. So yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. I think, as you just said, it goes hand in hand, and making sure that they understand that, and for future prospect athletes, student athletes, knowing that that's an important piece, and to be able to do both with excellence.
Right. Exactly.
And kind of talking about the gymnastics side of things, you don't do your job alone. You have a support staff. Can you talk about your support staff and what each and every one's role is and what they bring to the gymnastics program?
Yes. So we have two assistant coaches. Actually, Sunny Marchand is our associate head coach, and Sunny is awesome. I actually recruited her to come to BG and was her coach, and I'm really lucky to have that experience. And I just love coaching Sunny. Such a hard worker, so dedicated. And then she helped out with our program for a couple of years after that, and then kind of went off and did some grad school and worked at UNH. She was an assistant coach there. And then I just feel so fortunate she came back to Bowling Green to coach here again. And we're really different in our personalities and styles, and that's very important to me, that our staff has very different personalities, very different strengths. Sunny is very direct and encouraging, but she's going to tell you, this is the truth. This is how things are. And she does a phenomenal job. She does a lot of recruiting for us. She's the uneven bars coach. So she's got her hands full with that group, trying to get those bar routines just right, those handstands perfect. But she could really coach any event, which is great. So, one thing I think our staff does well with is just taking feedback from one another and bouncing ideas off each other. She also has a strength and conditioning background. That was her master's program. So she can bring that to the table and kind of work hand in hand with our strength coach here. And then Austin Phobes is new to our program. Austin was an outstanding elite gymnast in her younger days and was a gymnast at UNH. So it's her first year with us, and she's doing awesome. She does vault and floor, and she does our choreography, and really excited about what she's done with the team this year, and all the music and the dance that she's worked on with them. You can definitely see just some great routines that are going to be out there this year. And just really, we sit together and just chat about where are we, where should we go? We do it together. I'd say I'm not a micromanager in any way. I really want the feedback, and I want it to be a group effort from our staff. And then we have a great athletic trainer and an awesome strength coach. So we couldn't do it without those components as well. Most coaches would say, it's the athletic trainer is so key in what we're doing and keeping their bodies healthy and ready for training and for competition. So we're really fortunate with the staff we have here.
And how do the girls interact with each coach? Is it pretty easy for them to kind of interact and understand everybody's personality and role, and to be able to find a healthy way to balance it all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they know that our personalities are different. And I feel like if they gravitate towards one coach more than another, that's fine, as long as they have a strong sense of communication. Because I think that's something in gymnastics. I feel like the culture's shifted, and it's still shifting in a way we need it to. Where the voice of the student athlete needs to be stronger, and they need to feel like they can communicate, and to be able to open those lines of communication. It's tricky, especially when they come to college and they're like, man, you're always asking us how we're doing. And I don't accept the answer of fine. I'm always like, no, that's not a real answer.
Right.
Tell me what's really going on.
Right.
So, we want them to communicate with every coach so that those partnerships are strong with each coach, and we can help them maximize their training, but also their growth as a person. We want to know them personally and make sure their goals beyond gymnastics are also being met here. And it just takes a lot of work. We actually have them fill out a weekly self-evaluation log, which they can do on their phone. And there's probably 5 or 6 questions. And in there, we even put in there, do you feel like you need to meet with the coaching staff? How's strength and conditioning going? How's athletic training going? How's your mental health? How's your physical health? Some of them are willing to verbalize that to us, and some do better just putting it in writing, and then we can have a follow-up meeting. But that opening those lines of communication is where it starts.
And do you guys do a team captain system, or do you guys have a leadership committee where you have one from each of the grade levels, freshman, a sophomore, a junior, a senior, or do you guys kind of do something different in order for the team to kind of have leadership within themselves?
Yeah, we used to do, I've done it all at this point in 20 years here. I used to really believe in the let's have captains. And then that shifted into, we did try the leadership council out where we kind of had representation from each class. And in the last couple of years, what I found, particularly with this generation in college right now, is just, it's been better not to name leaders. It's been much more organic. We have to be on top of our communication as a staff from our end. But let them step into the roles, whether it's the seniors sometimes are really clear and want to step in and take care of something, great. If there's a freshman that has their moment where they can say, hey, I think this idea would be good, they can step in. And I think that's important, is that sometimes if we label it, it shuts down the communication, especially from the newer members. But if we leave it sort of organic and let's have a meeting and anybody can talk, I put them in small groups a lot in different grades, so that they do talk, and then bring the group back together and just say, hey, let's discuss what we've talked about in this team meeting and what did everyone say. And I tend to get more responses from different ages and different people. And I think that's really important to have a cohesive team, but that's worked best in these last couple of years. And I think things are just changing a bit. And as a coach, I work really hard to try to not be stuck in that this is the way we always did it mindset. I think that's a real hindrance to growth. So yeah, we're just going with the flow a little bit more here now.
And how does that show up in a competition? Being able to have everyone have a voice, does it make it easier when things are going great for anybody to kind of speak up? Or if things aren't not and there's needing that boost, to not wait on someone who's a leader or captain to be the one voicing? Because sometimes, depending on the competition, that leader may be the one who's struggling in that competition and feels like they don't have the authority or even just the energy to be able to give out because they're dealing with their own either
Mhm.
mishaps during the competitions or their own emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely has to be a skill that's practiced in practice daily of, whether I coach beam, and, they, after the last person lands, the next person in the lineup, they always have that person go up and talk to the next person up, right? So, trying to instill in practice that anybody's voice could be powerful in that moment. And even putting it in the assignments. I mean, in my assignments, sometimes it will be like, step 1, practice your cue words. Step 2, get a partner. Step 3, give your partner a pep talk. Because if they haven't done that and practiced it, they're not going to do it on meet day. So, you have to build those things into your assignments. And I do agree with what you're saying. Some days if you just have 1 or 2 people as the leaders, and it's just not their day and they're wiped out, who's going to step in? And if they haven't practiced it throughout the year, it's hard for someone to just do that on the spot. So I think we try to open up as many opportunities for leadership and different kinds of leadership. We certainly have some people in the gym who are just the model every day. They come in and they're just cranking work out over and over and doing a great job in training, but they're not the most vocal. And then sometimes we have others that are vocal leaders and, some that are creative in their leadership. So trying to let all of those styles really blossom, I think that leads to the best team possible. So, yeah.
And what kind of pillars do you stand on for your program in regards to these are our non-negotiables? These are the things that we are going to abide by, and not really to kind of put rules and regulations, which we kind of need to in order to have order, but to have an identity. What are those pillars that give Bowling Green Gymnastics their identity?
Yeah, we worked a lot on this. Actually, last year we did quite an extensive retreat where we went through and talked about, I want the team to name the non-negotiables. What's not going to be okay and what is okay as a teammate, and make sure that's really well defined. I obviously have, our coaching staff has our team rules and we're going to go over those. But I think it's more powerful when your teammates can say, hey, we're not okay with this, or we're really okay with this. But 3 words came up last year. So accountability, competitiveness, and togetherness, or family. You could go with family on that. But I think that kind of depends on how you feel about family. That could be different for different people. So,
Exactly.
I like the word together because it's more inclusive to me. It's sort of like everyone can get together. So those 3 words are still part of our program. And I think we needed to up the accountability. We needed to up the competitiveness. We were doing pretty well together, but those other 2, I think last year we took some huge steps in that area. I'd say a few other things that are important. I think love is just important. You got to love what you're doing, or it's really hard to do a good job with it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
you'll struggle with that. And then I think excellence, striving for excellence in the classroom, in the gym, and then just excellence as a person, to try to be your best self, whatever that looks like on a given day. I always say, if you can just give me 100% of what you've got that day, because it's going to look different day to day, then you're doing great. We can get something out of a day where you're willing to just give, even if you're sore or you're tired or we have a limitation and we can't do a full routine that day. Just give me 100% of what you've got that day. So I think those are things that really define, our program. And then just communication, as I was saying, that it starts there. You've got to have good communication if you're going to have a great team culture.
I love that. And talking about competition, can you talk about what it looks like competing there and the fan base that is there?
Yeah, so we're actually transitioning out of our current facility and into the Stroh Center this year. So all of our meets will be in the Stroh Center. This is something our program's been working really hard to get. We've had a few meets in the Stroh over the years, but this is a huge step up, and I'm thankful for our athletic director and our sports supervisor. They've really pushed to make this happen. So we're excited. It's going to be an elevated experience, not only for our own student athletes, but for the teams that are going to be coming in to visit. It's a great venue for fans, beautiful video board, and there's really not a bad seat. You can see everything in the gym, and we're working really hard to make sure it's really fan interactive, that the fans understand what's going on in the meet, and they have opportunities to join in some of the promotions while we're doing the touch warm up. But it's a great venue, and we're really excited to move in there this year. I think we'll be able to boost sort of the student participation and things like that moving into a new venue too.
And you had mentioned also how the student athletes really love interacting with each other and going to each other's sporting events and stuff like that. has that been something that you've seen for gymnastics where other sports are able to come and make a presence and to support the gymnastics program?
Yeah, absolutely. You can kind of tell when a team walks in and they all sit together, at a meet. And we definitely feel that support from the other teams on campus. We actually have a year-long competition, so teams can earn points for going to other teams' events, which I think is a great move by the athletic department. It just builds that camaraderie amongst the sports. But I think something really special about college gymnastics is that the student athletes coming in, gymnasts tend to have not been a part of their high school programs, right? They are going to clubs and then they come to college and they all of a sudden get to represent their school. And it's really special, and I feel like it's the first time a lot of other sports are exposed to gymnastics, whether they're seeing them crank out 20 pull-ups in the strength and conditioning weight room, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at these gymnasts. They're so strong. Or they come into the gym or they're walking by and we've got the doors propped open and they can look in and watch. And then they come to a meet and they're just so wowed by it. And it's such a special moment for gymnastics student athletes. They've worked a long time in club to get to a point where they can actually represent their own institution. And it's one of the most special things that I think we continue to highlight in NCAA gymnastics. You finally get that school pride, you get to wear your logo, your school colors. And it's just a special moment. And they get such respect from the other athletes from the other teams. They're all wowed by the gymnasts and they all want to come in and try and do gymnastics, but I don't think their coaches would be that happy with me if I let them. Oh, goodness.
Exactly. No, and again, we are fortunate to be in the sport that we are because we have incredible women who are doing awesome stuff with their strength and their the skills that they are doing, and to be able to witness those things. And you made a great point where a lot of times gymnasts aren't in a place where that they get to represent their school, and not every state really has high school gymnastics to where some of these athletes were exposed to it, like you said. And so it's cool to be able to have that experience and for them to really get into it, because sometimes it feels like a sport where only your mom and dad goes to, right? Or your closest
Right.
sibling. Because in club, obviously with the entry fees and all that stuff, it's only your family that really goes, or if you have a close friend or something like that that goes. And now having a whole, you know, a much bigger option in regards to population that could come is kind of cool. And it re-energizes sometimes the gymnasts who may sometimes be like, all right, I'm talented enough to get to this point, but maybe I don't have the energy just because I've been doing it for myself or just for these people. Now, hey, I have my peers who are not in the gym with me every single day or who see everything that I do all the time. Now they get to experience it, and it re-energizes a lot of times those gymnasts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a special experience and, just it's great. I mean, it's great when we'll be on the floor of a meet and someone's like, "Oh, there's my professor," or "There's, my roommate who might, or someone down the hall from the floor they live on." Those special things, and you just feel like it's like they're almost hidden, these amazing athletes, and then boom, all of a sudden everybody gets to come watch them. And I think we've done a fantastic job as a coaches association creating a fantastic kind of fan-friendly event. The way the meets are set up, the timing of the meets, they're typically done in 2 hours or less. It's a really great experience for fans to come to, and awesome for the student athletes. And I'm so proud of all the changes that we've made as a coaches association to make that event something special and something that people that may know nothing about gymnastics, they want to come back. They love it. So it's something that we keep working on. We keep trying to make it the best possible. And it's like I said, I mean, we're on TV more than ever this year. NCAA gymnastics as a whole, it's the viewership's up, and we're doing something really special with it.
Right. And talking about viewerships, a lot of times people know conferences and know what universities might be in certain conferences. Can you talk about what conference you guys are a part of? And is it similar or different? Because a lot of times, not a lot of conferences may not have gymnastics all the time. So they may have a separate conference. So if you guys do, can you kind of talk about what teams are part of your conference for gymnastics?
Yep. So we're in the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, and we're really fortunate that that is the actual conference our schools belong to. So gymnastics is one of the MAC sports, and it includes Kent State, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, Central Michigan, Northern Illinois, and Ball State. So there's 7 of us. It's a mid-major conference. We're really geographically close, if that's possible now with the conference, a lot of shifting going on.
Right.
We kind of cover that Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. And it's awesome. I feel like the MAC has done a great job providing a super competitive environment, but I can't think of a healthier balance between student and athlete. The expectations of our student athletes to be excellent students is a huge part of our conference. And the athletic side, we continue to be really competitive. But I love it. The coaches we're really close. We wish each other happy birthday, and we wish each other happy Thanksgiving. We've got the group head coaches text, and it's like there's a lot of care for one another, and we really love what we do. And the MAC's a really special place, and it continues to have a strong identity even as conferences are shifting. So I hope we can keep it together and keep going the way we are, because I just love it. It's a really special conference to be a part of.
And I like how you mentioned that piece of, interacting more than just competitors, because a lot of times when we get into competitions, it almost becomes systematic where you're competing against this university, this school, this school, this school, and it becomes that rather than a relationship. Like these other athletes are trying to do the same thing that your athletes are doing at a high level and wanting to be able to do that. And maybe it's more so like the fan may kind of identify those things a little bit more, or sometimes it depends on the culture of that program. Sometimes it is where it's talked about like, hey, we have to go out and beat those guys, right? And some of the personal human side kind of gets drowned or put on the back burner just because what we came out to do, we have to come out and dominate, which you want to, but our sport being mostly individual, and in that bringing a team score, I feel like it's easier to kind of relate a little bit more because again, and the mental capacity that is required to do our sport.
Right.
I think so much of it, and to me as a coach, I say this to my athletes. I'm like, the physical part of it is probably a lot easier than the mental part. And we actually use the physical part to train your mindset a lot of times.
True.
You want to get your body right, the right shapes and stuff like that. But can you be disciplined enough to do it correctly? And so it times it when you need to, it shows up when you need to. That's more mental, right? If you have
Right.
a kid who is doing V-ups and they cheat their V-ups and their double back keeps opening, 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 well, what did you do with your V-ups? You cheated it. And that's more mental. It's not necessarily physically, because we could see, hey, physically you can do it, or we allow it to be at a certain level, but allowing our our human side of us to be able to be there, right?
Absolutely. We just had an exhibition meet with Ball State, who's in the MAC, and they came to us and we had a meet. And both teams at one point, where one of the teams was done and someone was still going from the opposing team, and the other team would come over and they were cheering on those athletes. It was really like, I was like, this is awesome. Ball State has someone going on beam and our team went over and they're watching and they're clapping and they're saying, come on, you can do this. And they did the same for us when we still had a few competitors going on an event. And I mean, I think this is just what it's about. These athletes work so incredibly hard, for a long time. It's not easy being a gymnast. We all know that. And, you want competitiveness, but you want it to be a healthy competitiveness. And I feel like in the MAC, we have such a healthy mindset for the student athletes, and they're doing great gymnastics. I mean, across the board, they're doing awesome gymnastics. But there is a lot of concern about just their growth and have it being a healthy place, and that we're happy when any of the MAC teams, go to regionals or have an individual going to nationals or have a Kent State made it to nationals, one year. It's like we're all celebrating that together. We see that as a win for our conference. And, I think that's a great environment to be in.
And kind of talking about that, the transfer portal has been something the last few years that has really kind of exploded. And then in gymnastics, it probably exploded more so during COVID with fifth years and even just COVID years, and being able to try to find, because sometimes with some of these universities, say an athlete went to Bowling Green for 4 years and had another year because of COVID, but for whatever reason, there may not be that opportunity financially, at least with a scholarship there. They could enter into the transfer portal, go somewhere else, and that has a scholarship available and pursue a master's program or whatever it is. But also the culture of gymnastics sometimes, which is the unfortunate with any sport, is sometimes there's people are just unhappy.
Yeah.
How has the transfer portal been for you guys? Has it been a asset or something that has really not been something that really has been utilized as much because athletes really enjoy their time being at Bowling Green?
Yeah, we actually haven't had athletes transfer out in the last several years. And I do think it's not only the culture of our team, it's the university. We have a high retention rate here because students love being here. They love being at Bowling Green. So you get a lot of positive feedback, I feel like, from just the university in general. We have had an athlete transfer in, and that was a huge success. She was just awesome. She's already graduated now. But during the pandemic, she transferred in and was a great contributor to our program, and, still stay in touch with her. So I think, with the transfer portal, I think when everyone's recruiting and you're going through that process, you're really trying to find the right fit. I think everybody's really trying to do their best to get to know programs. It's not always easy. It's phone calls, it's visits. You're trying to get to know the student athletes. I always say to anybody visiting our program, ask our student athletes, why did you choose BGSU and why are you still here? Make sure you're asking that question. Don't just ask the coach. Ask the student athletes, because they're living it, right? Their experience is different than mine. As someone who's been here for 20 years, my perspective is going to be quite different than, a freshman on my team who's still getting used to campus and figuring it all out and, kind of finding their own identity here at BGSU. So I think sometimes that goes great. I think having the opportunity to transfer is important. I was a transfer student, and it was really important to me. I think there's some larger issues now. You've got NIL playing a role in transferring. So it can become quite complicated, but I really think if we're focusing on transfer as an opportunity to find the right fit, or the opportunity to continue gymnastics, as you were saying, after 4 years and you want a fifth year, that's great for gymnastics. If we can have people doing gymnastics longer, great. We're doing something right? If they're able to get 5 years of gymnastics in. So, I think it's just trying to make sure the transfer is happening for the right reasons, and that, if somebody's in a program and they're unhappy, they should get a second chance of trying to find the right place, assuming that they've communicated and they've tried to work through those issues with the coaching staff and with the team or whatever's going on. I think if we all approach it as we want our student athletes to go and have a great experience, and if we're not the right fit, go find the right fit. There's nothing wrong with that. That takes a lot of courage to say it out loud and give it a try, right? I think where we're seeing a lot of controversy with transferring would be probably more in other sports, where you're seeing kind of pay to play and inducement offers to lure people away. I hope that's not happening in gymnastics as much, because I think that can be, a little bit of smoke and mirrors. Money isn't going to bring you happiness. It's got to be a place where you feel like you're thriving as a person, you're growing as a person, you're learning more about who you are and your identity, and hopefully people are finding that right fit. So I know I'm not the coach for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah,
And the student athlete might learn more of who they are when they get to a program and decide this isn't right. Nothing wrong with that. That takes a huge amount of vulnerability and courage to make a move and try something new if you
a-
need to.
absolutely. And I think that's should be talked about a little bit more, because it's not always where some may not have done their due diligence. They
Right.
might have gotten there and things just may not be for whatever reason, or they didn't do their due diligence and feel like they need a different opportunity. Because if they stay, it may hurt more than help, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it does. You went through this process, you went through time to really commit, and you felt like everyone's on the same page, and then we're not on the same page at a certain point. It could
Sure.
have, some type of emotions to it, but at the end of the day, you don't want to create it to become a area of trauma, if that's an
Right.
appropriate word, where it hurts either side. If it hurts the student athlete side, if it hurts the academic university side, or even just the coaching and the culture of the program that their athletic program that they're a part of. You know, everybody on the side wants to win, in this thing, and making sure that all those things are being communicated, not always assuming that it could be something unhealthy going on, which again, we've learned that in the past that there is times where there is unhealthy things going on, and people need to assess those things when they happen within to see what's really the cause, and hopefully rectify those things if they have those opportunities, and do right by themselves, their program, their student athletes, and their university. But again, sometimes it's just I just need a different opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think, it's a huge transition to go to college and be a student athlete. The time demands are huge. And I think we really have to recognize, that even certain coaches that may get called out for not being, this or that, people are different. Some people have different sort of motivations. I mean, I've had student athletes that have said, like, well, I was used to a coach yelling at me, right? And, I've changed a lot as a coach. My style now is completely different than it was even 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. Um, and I think it's just making sure that if it's not the right situation, or you feel like you're in a place where you're not thriving and it is becoming sort of isolating, or you're freezing up at the school because you can't relate to what's going on in the program, like I said, I think just knowing that you have that option to go somewhere else is important, and to try, and to not see it as a failure. I dealt with that a lot when I freshman year had gone to a program. Nothing wrong with the program. It just, for me, the school, it wasn't the right fit at that time for me and where I was in my own emotional maturity. And making that change was so hard. And I felt like a failure for a little bit, and then realizing that the change, that was the best change I could have made, right? But it
Yeah.
took me a full semester to even sort of accept being in this new place and having to really get out of my comfort zone to be okay in that space. So, it's okay to sometimes give something a try and just figure out it's not the right fit and move on to something else. So I personally think, hopefully you get it right the first time. That's great when that happens. And we're happy for everyone when that happens. But as I said, the courage it takes to say it's time for a change, as we know at any point in our lives, that's difficult, whether it's college or even in your adult life, it can be super challenging to say it's time for a change. So, I think your points are so valid, and I agree we need to talk about it more as a means of um kind of like normalizing when something's not going well, that you can move on to something else. And that doesn't mean that the thing you left was completely broken and wrong. It just wasn't right at that time for you, and go
Right.
ahead and move on to something else.
Right. And I think the communication process in that is one of the most important pieces, as you mentioned, is have things been communicated on
Right.
either ends? And even in if there's going to be an exit, has that been done properly?
Hmm.
Instead of um, doing it in an inappropriate way, right? On both, not both sides, but on any sides that are involved, making
Right.
sure you're doing right by those people
Hmm.
and being honest and doing it with integrity,
Yeah.
you know, and kind of even talking about, just with integrity and stuff like that. We had talked a little bit about NIL. We just kind of mentioned it.
Yeah.
And it's becoming now one of those things that kind of can be another amenity, right, to certain programs where a bonus that you can get. And depending on where you live, and this is one thing I learned, is that each state has different laws and different rules about how NIL works. And being in Ohio at Bowling Green, is that something that your student athletes, at least with gymnastics, are actively already being involved in? And are you seeing that as something that recruits are either coming in or asking about, or even something that you guys as a staff are working on helping your athletes with?
Yeah, so we have resources for NIL. They have we partner, athletics partners with certain groups that can offer NIL opportunities. I wouldn't say our team's using NIL a lot right now, to be honest. We've had a few people ask about it. We've had people say, hey, is this going to be part of the program at BGSU? I see it as it's there and they could take advantage if they want, right? So if a student athlete is really, has that entrepreneur mindset and they want to go for it, there are opportunities, there are resources through the athletic department to connect them to NIL opportunities, but we don't spend our day to day discussing NIL. Um, I think NIL, particularly in the gymnastics space, has actually been pretty good. NIL was, I think of it as our student athletes, we have full scholarships here at BGSU for our athletes. And let's say one of them wanted to become an influencer for a brand. They used to not be able to do that, but any student on campus could become an influencer for a brand. So our student athletes should have that opportunity as well. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing in gymnastics, is that opportunity to, it's more permissive. They can go ahead and take advantage of opportunities that any student on a campus would be taking advantage of. I think where NIL gets has lost its way is kind of in that pay to play sort of area. I don't know if that's affecting gymnastics as much. Certainly not for the core. I would say looks a little bit different. The higher the budget, the larger the school, kind of the bigger the program, the more media it gets. Things could look different there, but I don't live there, so I don't know. I don't want to speak for that side of it.
Right.
Um, So, there's definitely student athletes in that mid-major all the way down to Division III taking advantage of NIL. But I think it's more on the athlete to take advantage of that than us as a coaching staff sort of pushing for it, at least right now. Athletics is changing every second of every day. So
Yeah,
it could look different in a few months or a year from now. But I think as a coach, I just want to spend my time, like I said, on the growth of the individual. And if someone's super into their entrepreneurship and they want to go down that path, I will, make sure they know who to go talk to in athletics to pursue that. Um, but I also don't want to lose kind of the value of the education that they're getting just by being here on a scholarship. I mean, that's a huge special thing. And I don't want that to be lost in the conversation either.
absolutely. And you kind of mentioned how it's one of those things that, could get eerie, the pay to play, but, and hoping that in gymnastics it doesn't become that. A lot of time, the really cool thing I think is it gives not only scholarship athletes an opportunity to gain some type of either um, resources financially, but
Right.
like your walk-ons are able to do that because I think that could be huge too for walk-ons who may need other financial help, who may not want to depend on like loans and stuff like that. It could be something that helps pave the way for them, but also other opportunities to be able to help their families, right? Um,
Agreed.
and I think that's really important. And understanding what your intention is with your NIL
Hmm.
like ventures, I think is something that hopefully the student athletes are being educated on
Yeah.
instead of just thinking, hey, it's an opportunity for me to make it about me and then kind of get lost into what they're really trying to do, because sometimes with this it could launch them into something totally different, where sometimes even with a lot of people they get degrees that they don't ever really pursue jobs in because of other opportunities. It's just something that has helped them because of the work that it needs, that you need to complete a degree. But in general, also some people don't. So these NILs, you may become an influencer for
Right.
however long. That might be the thing that you do. And having those opportunities, or being an entrepreneur, or having it in with these companies. Oh man, I got into marketing now with social media. Now I want to do this as a career. And you're working with some of these platforms, or working with these companies to say, hey, can I be on your marketing team to help grow your business and creating value? And I think that's the biggest thing, is that you can find other places to create value that goes beyond just your time at the university or even the sport that you do.
Yeah, and I think the other great thing that's come from NIL is just seeing our NCAA gymnasts on our national team. I think that's phenomenal that we can have Olympians competing NCAA and NCAA be Olympians. I think it's
Yes.
really, really good for the sport. And that was a really huge move, to make that happen. And, there are a lot of great things from NIL. And I do think, it's been the right move for the most part. There's a couple things that I think everyone across athletics, like the state to state rules, we'd all like to see a federal policy for NIL. And I think the NCAA is working on that, trying to get there with some things, but it's hard sort of once the worms are out of the can, you can't really shove them back in. So now
Yeah.
that we've kind of been doing this process, it's like anything in life. You've got to adapt, you've got to move with it, you've got to learn, you've got to be educated about it. And I think that's what we try to do here, is just stay on top of what's happening. Give our student athletes the opportunity if they want it. Not every student athlete wants to worry about that. They've got a lot on their plate already. And some of them will be really savvy and take advantage of that. And some are just, like I said, happy with the value of the education they're getting. And that's enough. So as you said, every family's circumstances are different. And I think allowing an opportunity is always good. So if that allows somebody an opportunity to do something in a talent area that they already have and they're great on social media, which I am not, then great for them. Go for it and build your business, and that's great.
Yeah. Is there any last nuggets or anything like that you want to leave the listeners and viewers about yourself, about your program, what you guys have going on in this 2024 season, or anything you just want to share in general?
Yeah, I think I'm so proud of my team. Like I said, my coaching style has changed a lot from even 5 years ago. And I think that our team is a really healthy place. It's a really happy place to be a student athlete. There's ups and downs. I'm not saying it's sunshine and rainbows every day, but we work really hard to communicate and work through those things. And I'm excited for our season. I can't wait to get the team out there. They've worked really hard for their opportunities this year, and just excited to see where they go with it. And I think as people in the gymnastics community, we just need to keep working to change the culture and look at ourselves and what are we doing. I've had to have a really deep dive, I think, into my own coaching style, and how I could do better. I think I'm always doing that, but I think, I've had more of a shift within the last few years more than anything to create the best student athlete experience possible. So, I hope everybody in gymnastics is doing that, and that we remember that we're here for the athletes more than anything else. And yeah, I can't wait for NCAA season to get started. So thank you. Thanks
Uh,
for having me.
no, thank you. And where do you guys open up your season?
We're at home in the Stroh Center, our first, meet of the year there, and we will be hosting Illinois State. And their assistant coach is one of our alums. So we're excited to welcome Megan Harrington back to the BGSU with her team. So we're really looking forward to it.
Very cool. Yes, and thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Heated Conversations with Head Coach Kerrie Turner of Bowling Green State University. If you want to know anything more about them, you can check my description below. Thank you again. Remember to subscribe, share, like, and leave a comment. I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Happy BGSU One Day. What an exciting time to support BGSU Gymnastics. Please help us achieve our goals of raising funds for new Resi pits and an enhanced experience at our fall retreat. Thanks so much. We appreciate all you do for our program, and go Falcons.